Have you ever wondered why we feel the need to show off what we have, what we know, or what we've achieved? As if the value of our accomplishments didn't exist unless someone else claps for them. It's strange. The more we try to prove ourselves, the more we seem to lose. In a world where visibility feels like the same thing as success, the temptation to brag has become nearly impossible to resist. But from the shadows of raw, unapologetic political thinking, Niccolò Machiavelli offers us an unexpected warning. Showing off isn't just unnecessary, it's dangerous. Not because it's immoral, but because it's foolish strategy. In the game of power, showing your cards too soon is like handing over your weapons before the fight begins. Humans are walking contradictions. We crave recognition, but we're terrified of being judged. We want to stand out, but we hate becoming a target. And in that tension, we often fall into the worst trap of all, turning our victories into a spectacle. Machiavelli, who cared less about how the world should be and more about how it actually works, understood better than anyone that the urge to display greatness often hides a deep internal fragility. There's nothing more vulnerable than an exposed ego. There's nothing more fragile than an achievement that only feels real if everyone else praises it. Picture a prince who just came to power. He's defeated his enemies, expanded his territory, bent others to his will. But if he runs to boast about it, chasing applause and demanding admiration, he's basically signing his own downfall. Because in politics, and in life, every unnecessary show of strength is an open invitation for conflict. Real power doesn't need to be announced. It just is. And it works best when no one sees it coming. Showing off is shouting to the world, "I have something to lose." And that shout attracts enemies, fuels envy, and raises suspicion. It's better to be underestimated and surprise them later than to be feared and plotted against from the start. The problem with showing off isn't just what you say, it's what it causes. The one who brags throws a rock into still water. The ripples that follow are unpredictable. Maybe an old ally starts wondering if sticking by you is still worth it. Maybe someone more powerful decides you're shining a little too bright. Maybe those who don't even know you yet start to view you with suspicion. Bragging turns admiration into rivalry. It turns potential inspiration into resentment. And in a world where everything depends on fragile perceptions, that can be disastrous. But there's something even deeper, more human, behind our need to brag. We show off because we want to feel validated. Because deep down, we're not totally sure our achievements are enough. Someone who truly knows their own strength doesn't need to flaunt it. Someone at peace with what they've accomplished doesn't need witnesses. Bragging, on the other hand, reveals a crack in the foundation. It's the need to be seen, the need for others to confirm what we're still unsure of inside. Machiavelli, even in his cold realism, was a sharp student of human psychology. He understood that many of our worst decisions don't come from poor judgment, but from insecurity disguised as pride. The irony is brutal. The more we show off, the weaker we make our position. The more we flash our strengths, the more we expose our blind spots. Because bragging isn't just sharing, it's claiming superiority. And for someone watching from the sidelines, that's not just annoying, it's a challenge. It's an opportunity. In politics, in social circles, even in close relationships, no one offers an advantage without someone else stepping in to take it. Show too much, and you lose control of the story. You let others decide what your success really means. What you see as a badge of honor, someone else might take as a slap in the face. And it only takes one bitter glance to make you their target. Even in our closest bonds, showing off throws things out of balance. That friend who always brings up what they own. That coworker who never misses a chance to highlight their wins. That relative who needs constant admiration just to breathe. They all eventually end up alone. Not because they're bad people, but because they're exhausting. Because, as Machiavelli seemed to sense, arrogance dressed as confidence eventually turns on the person wielding it. Too much visibility doesn't bring people closer, it pushes them away. The constant need to prove yourself creates emotional distance. And when our connections weaken, everything else starts to crack. But what if instead of showing off, we chose strategic silence? What if, like the Florentine master advised, we kept our intentions hidden, toned down our self-promotion, and let our actions speak for themselves? There's massive power in what's unsaid, in what's hinted at but not explained. Not because silence is weakness, but because it's wisdom. The one who can wait, the one who holds back, the one who acts without needing the spotlight, masters a rare art, the art of influence without being seen. And that, for Machiavelli, was the art of true leadership. There's a strange kind of beauty in quiet dominance. In that type of power that doesn't need billboards or speeches, that doesn't impose but subtly shapes. It's a force you don't see, but you feel. A presence that doesn't demand attention, but somehow commands it. The show-off wants to be the center. The discreet person becomes the axis. And that's the real difference. The first depends on others to feel important. The second stands firmly on their own. This isn't about hiding your wins or pretending you're not proud of them. It's about emotional intelligence, strategic restraint, a deep understanding of how people actually work. Bragging is forgetting that perception is everything. That often, what matters most isn't who you are, but what people think you might be capable of. Mystery has weight. Discretion earns respect. Calculated humility is, in truth, a higher form of control. So the next time you feel the urge to tell the world what you've achieved, pause. Not because you don't deserve the praise, but because maybe, just maybe, you deserve something even better: stability, respect, longevity. Bragging might get you a quick round of applause. But staying quiet? That might earn you something far more valuable: a solid position. In a world drowning in noise, smart silence becomes the loudest voice. And as Machiavelli knew all too well, in the game of power, loud voices rarely win. But the shadows rule. Showing off is, at its core, a form of impatience. It's like we can't handle the silence that follows a victory. We need immediate validation. We want to know it was worth it, that people noticed, that we matter. But impatience is a terrible advisor. It makes us lay our cards on the table too soon, give away our strategy before the game even starts. It pushes us to speak when we should be watching. And slowly we lose control over what we've built. In Machiavelli's world, ruling wasn't just about having power, it was about understanding the human soul. And the human soul? It's fickle, unpredictable, impulsive. One day it cheers for your success, the next it resents you for achieving it. Genuine admiration is rare. What often looks like praise is really just quiet surveillance. They want to know what you have, what you can do, how far you've gone, not to celebrate, but to assess whether you're a threat. Constant exposure doesn't just exhaust people, it makes them defensive. Who really trusts someone who constantly needs to be seen, praised, confirmed by others? What kind of strength is that? One that only exists in the mirror of applause. There's something deeply fragile in the soul that shows off. Not because it's broken, but because it never learned to stand on its own. It depends on being watched the way an actor depends on the audience. But life isn't a stage. Or at least, it shouldn't be. Not if you care about freedom, balance, clarity. Showing off is also a form of carelessness. We overlook the impact our words can have on others. We underestimate how much our wins, when paraded like trophies, can stir something bitter in those around us. Even if you didn't mean to boast, even if your words were honest, the very act of putting your success on display can quietly bruise someone's pride. It triggers comparison. And comparison is the root of bitterness. Sometimes it doesn't matter that you meant no harm. The damage still lands. This isn't about hiding your accomplishments out of shame or fake humility. It's about knowing when to speak, how to speak, and more importantly, when to stay quiet. There are silences that protect, that stabilize, that strengthen. A well-timed silence can prevent a fight, preserve an alliance, keep a group in harmony. And most of all, it buys you time. Time to think, to evaluate, to see clearly who's with you, and who's just waiting for you to fall. Machiavelli understood that real power is often invisible. The most feared leader isn't the one who shouts, but the one who watches. It's not the one who shows off his army, but the one who keeps it hidden until it's needed. In the game of power, uncertainty is a weapon. If people don't know, what you can do, what you have, they'll always stay cautious. Mystery commands respect. Discretion creates distance. But the one who shows off lays everything bare, and in doing so, becomes an easy target. No more surprises, no more uncertainty. Just a clear image, ripe for attack. Even in close relationships, the urge to show off becomes a trap. Sometimes we try too hard to impress the people we love. We want them to see us as strong, successful, admirable. But when that need becomes constant, it doesn't bring us closer, it drives a wedge. Because real love doesn't need a performance. It needs presence, authenticity, listening. And when everything turns into a display, into a contest for attention, the bond starts to crack. Showing off pulls us away from tenderness, from mutual recognition, from the humility that makes relationships real. At its heart, the need to show off is just a desperate attempt to escape being forgotten. We want to leave a mark, be remembered, stake our claim. But here's the irony. The harder we try to impress, the less impact we usually make. What comes from bragging is shallow. What comes from quiet action, on the other hand, tends to last. Because it doesn't rely on noise, it relies on results. And results, when they're real, speak for themselves. There's a deep kind of elegance in conscious modesty. Not the kind that hides out of fear, but the kind that chooses not to show off. Because it understands that true power doesn't need decoration. There's beauty in someone who walks their path without needing to announce every step. In the one who builds without demanding recognition. In the one who lets the outcome speak for itself. These are the people who earn respect without chasing it. Because they didn't ask for it, they didn't force it, they just embodied it. That's exactly what Machiavelli understood. Respect isn't begged for. It's earned. It's built day by day, through smart choices, solid actions, and well-placed silences. True respect shows up when people see in you something they can't easily copy: balance, cleverness, restraint. And none of those things come from words. They're revealed over time, especially in the moments when you choose not to brag, not to react, not to show off. In the end, it all comes down to one question. Who are you living for? Yourself or everyone else? If you're living for yourself, you don't need to impress. You just need to know that you're at peace with what you do, what you've achieved, who you are. But if you're living for others, the spotlight never goes off. There's always another person to convince, another thing to prove, another stage to stand on. And eventually, that gets exhausting. Machiavelli didn't write so we'd be virtuous in a moral sense. He wrote so we'd be effective, so we'd understand how to survive, thrive, and hold our ground in a shaky world. And in that world, the need to show off is a weakness. Not because it's evil, but because it distracts you. It pulls you off center. It makes you act for the crowd instead of building from your inner strength. The one who doesn't show off keeps their energy, guards their strategy, stays alert. Most importantly, they stay free. Free from opinions, from judgment, from the craving to be admired. And that kind of quiet, discreet freedom? That's the purest form of power there is. But the temptation to show off is still there, quiet, steady, like a low voice whispering, show it. Let them see it. Let them admire it. It's a sweet trap, disguised as a basic human need. Because deep down, who doesn't want to be seen? Who doesn't want their effort to be recognized, their healed wounds to be acknowledged, their long-fought victories to be celebrated? But that voice isn't trying to make you stronger. It's trying to distract you. It pulls you away from what matters and offers you an illusion instead. The illusion that being seen means you're valuable. That attention equals respect. That visibility is the same as real power. There's no more dangerous move for someone who wants to build something lasting than to become hooked on instant validation. Because the immediate has no roots. What gets eaten up in one round of applause is forgotten with the next noise. What's shouted just to be noticed ends up lost in the sea of other screams. But what's kept, what's protected, what's grown in silence, that takes root, that survives, that becomes part of you, not part of someone else's show. To think like Machiavelli is to think long-term. It's understanding that real power isn't something you flash, it's something you manage. It's not for showing off, it's for protecting. The moment you show off your strength, you're giving it away. The second you flaunt your wealth, you're making it weaker. The instant you brag about your wisdom, you're watering it down. Because in the very act of showing off, there's always the risk of losing. Showing off means betting on others to judge your worth fairly. But the world, as Machiavelli knew all too well, is rarely fair. It's competitive, unpredictable, cutthroat. And the more you broadcast your virtues, the easier it becomes for someone to envy them, to copy them poorly, or to tear them down completely. How many times, without meaning to, do we lay our deepest joys out in front of people who have no idea what to do with them? We think we're sharing out of love, and sometimes, yes, it is love. But other times, it's just naive. Because not everyone is happy for you. Not everyone's ready to hold the kind of light you fought so hard to find in the dark. And so, the joy you show with open arms can quickly come back to hurt you. Words get twisted. Success gets downplayed. Victory awakens resentment. And there you are, left gathering the broken pieces of something you shared with your whole heart. Showing off, in that sense, isn't just a strategic failure. It's a kind of self-betrayal. It's like telling yourself that feeling proud isn't enough. You need proof from outside. It's like your achievements don't count until someone else likes them, approves them, claps for them. But when did the value of who we are start depending on the eyes watching us? When did our self-worth get tied to the noise we make? The answer isn't to hide from the world. It's not about disappearing or pretending to be smaller than you are. It's about choosing carefully, when, where, and with whom you share what's real. It's about building a more grown-up relationship with silence, with discretion, with mystery. Because once you stop needing someone else's eyes on you, you start to see yourself clearly. And in that inner clarity, there's strength. There's peace. There's freedom. You don't need to say you're strong when you really are. You don't need to shout you've changed when the change is real. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth when it's written in the way you walk, the way you choose, the way you live. Real greatness doesn't announce itself. It's felt. It's breathed. It's noticed quietly by those who know how to see. And the irony? The moment you stop showing off, the moment you walk with quiet confidence, is exactly when people start respecting you the most. Because the world, shallow as it can be, still recognizes what's real. And real doesn't need glitter. There's a certain weight to someone who doesn't compete, who doesn't need to prove anything, who simply is. It's a weight you can't fake. It's a kind of pull that can't be manufactured. It's authority that doesn't shout, but that's still felt. Like those silent mountains, you never hear them coming, but nobody dares deny how massive they are. Machiavelli never said we should avoid recognition altogether. He knew symbols matter. He understood that how others see you can play a role in leadership, influence, and survival. But he also knew that every symbol loses its power when it's overused. That public image becomes hollow when there's nothing solid underneath it. And that the biggest mistake the powerful make is thinking their strength lies in appearances, when it really lies in discipline, strategy, and knowing when to stay quiet. So yeah, showing off is like planting flowers in soil with no roots. It's painting the front of a house that has no foundation. It's throwing a party at the start of a journey, not the end. And that's why, even if it tempts us, even if it feels harmless, even if we do it without realizing, it's a habit we need to watch closely. Because behind that habit is something much deeper than ego. It's about the direction we're choosing for our lives. Are we still chasing to be seen? Or are we finally ready to start seeing ourselves? Maybe the most powerful thing Machiavelli ever taught us isn't in one of his famous lines, or in some brutal truth about human nature. Maybe it's something quieter, something more lasting. Real power starts in silence. The one who masters silence, masters endurance. The one who doesn't need to be seen, already has the upper hand over those who live to be noticed. Because in that silence, something unbreakable grows. The unshakable certainty that you matter, even when no one's looking. And that changes everything. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's not a performance. It's just a way of being in the world. Steady, grounded, whole. And from that place, from that quiet, inner strength, you build the kind of power that doesn't blow away in the wind, that doesn't rust with time, that doesn't depend on applause to survive. It's power that's calm, steady, invisible, but undeniably real.